Hello, Internet. Now, it's of little secret that one of the great joys in my life is that I have many times, and hopefully will many times again in the future, had the opportunity to do a week or 3 weeks or even month-long road trips around the United States of America. I still believe that road trips in America is the best way to see that country. You can stop whenever you want. You see things that you would not probably see otherwise. You can sort of root around in the more obscure parts of the country, and at the same time you can still see the great cities and the great cultural monuments. However, since I want everyone to at least try to experience this glory themselves, I now present unto you 5 places in America you must see in a car before you die. Enjoy. Number 1. The Oregon lava fields. If you come from the east in Oregon, between Bend and the small city of Sisters, you will go from some rather dreary grasslands until a more deciduous area of thick, lush mountain forest. The road is fairly small. There is size limits on the car you can actually bring, but it is a very nice change of scenery, and the volcanic peaks that rise from that forest in the far distance gives it a certain, shall we say, glory that might not have been seen for quite a while during the central high plains. Then, however, suddenly, forest ends and you pass into the dead zone of the lava fields. Endless plains of onyx boulder strewn cooled lava stretches for as far as the eye can see on any directions, with dead trees and the peaks of the volcanoes standing in the far distance to create a spectacle of a view that you simply haven't seen in any other place on your travels so far. Continuing, you come to a small parking spot, high above which is a small observation tower called the D. Wright Observatory. It looks nearly like a watchtower against some hostile enemy force, but is really just a lookout tower for the people who has worked here and who can come as tourists. From the top, you have the most amazing view I have almost ever seen in such an area. Endless fields of lava stretching to all sides, with the volcanic peaks standing up as small reminders of where all this have originally come from. In this observatory on a plinth is a kind of compass setup, which doesn't show cardinal directions, but rather the position and placement of the various volcanoes that has given the area its distinct characteristic. You go down, you get in the car, you continue on west until you reach the main highway. The forest comes back, the lava recedes, and you continue down to the glorious civilization of Eugene, Oregon, unsure of whether or not you have in fact remained on Earth or seen a completely different planet. Number 2. Lake Martin, Louisiana. One of my great pleasures is to take swamp tours in southern Louisiana to see all the swamp life and to feel and hear nature up close as you can only do in such an environment. Lake Martin is one of the best areas I have ever seen and ever tried to do this. An open lake which nonetheless still contains basically all of the best of the Deep South swamp tours. You get alligators of great size, turtles, herons, assorted birds of any kind, The alligators will be sunning themselves. They will be swimming up to the boat. There is no feeding them here, so they are truly wild creatures. The herons are flying, beautiful white plumage, creating a strong contrast with the greenery behind them. The canals, almost like more southern placed bayous, where the water is still and insects are dancing on its surface. It is magnificent, truly a place to feel at one with nature, greater perhaps than any other I have seen. You will be in fairly small boats, so when you pass into the cypress swamps, you can still go directly between the trees as their knees poke up above the surface of the water. You move on to the actual lake itself, the open water, and see the great floating rivers of kelp and whatever water plants has grown and will be fed on by the birds. With no noisy airboat, you can get truly close to everything. The guides will give you great stories, like when they decided that they wanted to hunt ducks, but they weren't allowed to put up permanent structures on the lakeside. They built what they describe as, temporary permanent structures, a Louisiana truism, because they can be taken down even if they're up at all times. Well, we are talking about a bunch of Cajuns whose belief is you will eat whatever doesn't eat you first, so that they have other ideas about building permits is perhaps less surprising. One last thing to advertise for the area is the almost complete lack of mosquitoes. You will not be stung or bitten by these pests, as the dragonflies endemic to the areas and other wildlife in fact eat them. Altogether, go to Lake Martin, just outside Lafayette, Louisiana. It is overall by far the best swamp nature experience I have had in the United States of America. Number 3. Dry Tortugas National Park. A small, waterless island about 100 miles outside Key West. Most of it is a bird sanctuary. You can only actually spend time on about a third of the island. To get there, you will have to be on a 3-hour boat ride each way, or spend $300+ to get on a small hydroplane. So, why would you wish to go to such a desolate place? Easy, because the last third of the island is home to Fort Jefferson, the largest brick structure in the Western Hemisphere. A fortress from the mid-1800s designed to help America control the Gulf of Mexico. It never truly functioned at full strength because the water issues already mentioned. The cisterns got contaminated by seawater, and despite several hundred people actually living and working there, it never truly functioned as desired. Today it's being maintained by a handful of rangers from the National Park Service, and you can go almost anywhere except for where they live. The fortress was also the prison of Dr. Samuel Mudd, who was the person to treat the injuries that John Wilkes Booth suffered during his assassination of Abraham Lincoln. You can walk around in or on top of most of the fortress and get a good view of the surrounding islands and just the entire island that you can see from there, with the birds breeding on the closed off parts. Outside the seawall, the water is clear and low, and you can easily catch sharks and manta rays swimming up almost to the side of the fortress. One side of the fortress has a very good swimming beach where you can take a quick dip if the weather turns out to be too terribly hot. It is wonderfully cool and pleasant, just again, look out that a hammerhead doesn't take your leg off. Despite the price, I urge you to drive your car to the local Key West airport rather than the harbor and to take the hydroplane out there. The view is spectacular as you fly low over the shallow waters that create dunes and almost riverbeds under the sea where sharks, manta rays, and sea turtles are cavorting, and the view of the fortress as you come into it is spectacular, almost beyond words. This is a place you simply cannot miss, even if it is a bit of a cheat in as much as you cannot actually drive everywhere. Number 4. PIMA Air and Space Museum in Tucson, Arizona. A large museum covering 3 massive hangars, outside plane parking, and a huge boneyard out in the deserts. There are hundreds of planes and air vehicles from throughout history. It is a really great stop for anyone who has any kind of interest in either air history or planes or just overall technology to do with air travel. The museum is home to an SR-71, the Blackbird, probably the prettiest plane ever designed. It has fighters, jets, transporters, bombers stretching back to the Second World War, helicopters, hydrofoils, planes of every shape, size, dimension, and names, especially the names. Allow me to present to you, the petulant porpoise, both in design and name, probably my favorite plane of all times. Petulant porpoise. Brilliant. The museum is staffed by volunteer guides who often flew the planes that they are talking about themselves, or at least the models that they are talking about themselves, and they are both capable and willing of telling you anything you can possibly be interested in. Get there early enough and you will have the place almost to yourself, which is a rather awe-inspiring experience to be alone in this huge hangar with a B-29 or a B-17 from the Second World War with a guide who, well, either flew it himself or had someone in his family or friends flew it and can just tell you everything you would possibly like to know. The space part of the museum is focused, of course, around the American space travels from NASA. It has an X-15 model standing around, and it has a Eagle moon lander module in its hangar where you focus on that. Honestly, in the end, apart from the a bit over-expensive customary gift shop, this is easily one of the most bang-for-your-buck museums I have seen in most of America, and definitely in the Southwest, and is certainly worth a visit if you have any kind of interest in air transport or in planes in any description. Number 5. Carlsbad, New Mexico and its environs. Think Carlsbad and you think of the caves. The caves truly are phenomenal. Whatever trip you take, it is glorious, interesting, and awesome. Or at least it is if the damn kids would stop shouting while you are trying to drink in the quiet majesty of an underground lake. There are other things, however, to see in Carlsbad, and I will go over a few of them. The caves themselves doesn't actually need to have too much said about them. It is, as it is generally known, one of the most beautiful cave systems in America and in fact many parts of the world, with huge underground pools, great columns of stalagmites and stalactites, almost cathedral-like rooms where every sound echo, and the deep cracks that goes down into the deeper levels that are dankly lit and very interesting. It almost looks from some places like the Dragon's Mouth caves or entrances into hell. Well back outside the cave, you can get in your car and take a drive on the lonely hill roads of the area that snakes through the parched, burned desert of the Chihuahua Desert that the caves lie in. There is teeming with a bit of desert wildlife, sheer cliff drops, desert scenes, old native dwelling places, and above you the vultures will be circling, just waiting for your car to break down in the hopes of a cheap meal. In the evening, you can go to the same places that the caves are, but on the outside at an amphitheater where the hundreds of thousands of bats living there come out during the sunset to go hunt for insects in the area. No pictures from there, unfortunately, as you're simply not allowed to take any, but the almost tornado-like funnel of 500,000 bats leaving the cave at the same time to go look for food is simply not something to be missed. Also in the hills above Carlsbad is the amazing living desert zoo, focusing on the animals you will find in the surrounding Chihuahua desert area. It is a large and very well designed zoo with some animals you don't see in a lot of other places, but it's not exactly overrun with visitors, and the topiary and the bears and everything you can actually stop to see alone without being jostled in every way by other people. It is certainly worth a visit alongside the rest of Carlsbad. A bit of fair warning though, during peak times in Carlsbad, motels can get very expensive compared to other places, and I have not as of yet been in any of them where the internet Wi-Fi is actually even more than just average. Go if you must in those situations to a local Denny's or anything if you want to have internet connection. Overall, however, Carlsbad is most certainly worth a stopover on your road trip for a place to visit. Well, there you are. 5 places to see in America before you die. I admit number 3 is a bit of a cheat since you cannot in any way get to Dry Tortugas in a car, but going towards Key West, which is certainly a must-see part of any road trip in around the southern areas of Florida, you should not cheat yourself for a trip out there. Well, there will be more of these coming up. I hope to eventually cover all of the parts of America I have been in. I realize this was mostly in the south and southwest. Next time we will move out further towards the east probably, and maybe in the north. But overall, I hope I have inspired at least some of you to go see places that you otherwise perhaps did not know even existed. Until next time, I have been the Sage, and I hope to see you all again soon.